Uh, right, we are live.
All right, wonderful. All right, everybody, welcome to a first episode. This is a really great day today. So my name is Cyrus Janssen. I'm joined by Barrett of the Barrett channel, and this is really exciting because this is a collaboration that I think many of the fans have asked for, asked to see Lee and myself come together for a video, and we're really excited to be here today. Lee and I chat often. We're talking about, videos, content that we're doing, obviously China, the future of it. So we wanted to come together today to basically talk about the future of China, and it's interesting because I think many of you know that I'm currently in Vancouver, Canada right now. So we're going to be talking about the future of China and really the future of our world right now. Obviously, one of the big major topics we're going to talk about today is what is life post COVID-19? Post COVID-19, what is that life like in China? China is really leading the world right now, I think, in this post COVID-19 recovery. Really kind of showing the world, what this new normal is going to be. So I would definitely want to chat with Lee about that as he's on the ground traveling, within China. I'm going to share some perspectives here from North America. Obviously, many of you know that I am an American. So we have a very big world event, not really an American event, but certainly a world event on November 3rd with the presidential election. We're going to talk about that very briefly, but more related to China and how we see the relationship with the U.S. and China going forward. And then I think the big thing that we're going to talk about, that when we talk about the future of China, I really believe that is obviously technology. Technology is going to play a huge role in that. And, Lee is on the ground visiting several factories, almost every week, just all over China, visiting different factories, really has a great, grasp of the technology that is, emerging there in China. We're going to talk about that as well and talk about some new trends and everything. So first of all, Lee, how are you, buddy? Good to see you here.
I'm good. Yeah. Hello, everybody out there, all the subscribers, both on our channel and Cyrus's channel. We are streaming this stream to both channels. So whichever one you watch it on, welcome. And yeah, a lot of you guys out there have been asking for a collaboration between me and Cyrus. So that's what we're bringing you. It probably won't be the last one. If this goes well, we'll possibly do some more. And so what have I been up to? So last week we were in Suzhou, and we actually went to a very interesting company there. It was a company called Walk Lake, and what they do, they manufacture these they're AI robots, but they're fun AI robots to help get kids back into school. So what they do, they do, where you go into place, you have to have a temperature check, and maybe they look at your eyes and in your mouth to see if there's any rash or redness or raised temperature. They do that for kindergarten children. So the kindergarten children, they go up to the robot, they open their mouth, they put their hands inside, and it checks I think it checks about 15 or 20 different sort of things. And it kind of health screens them before they go into kindergarten. So that was quite interesting.
Amazing.
And then next week we're off to Xi'an on a sort of bit of a tour around Xi'an to see some sort of historical cool stuff there. So what have you been up to, Cyrus?
Well, let me ask. So Xi'an, have you guys been to Xi'an before?
Oliver has. Oliver went with his ex-girlfriend, but I haven't ever been. So
okay, obviously the Terracotta Warriors, obviously the big attraction there. What's really interesting in Xi'an as well is it has a very historic Muslim quarter, and it's a really neat place to go. And this is one of the things that obviously that is trending right now in China, talking about religious freedom. But it's quite amazing when you go to Xi'an, you have this historical Muslim quarter. I'm going to say it's at least 1,000 years old, could potentially be older than that. But it has all of these mosques and everybody there, a tremendous amount of Uyghurs that are there. I spent a lot of time there because it's so interesting because, I think in the Muslim culture, the Friday is the holy day there. So we were there on a Friday and they had all of these rituals. It's just kind of a neat thing, very, very neat cultural experience to have there. And obviously these, historic buildings, very beautiful things. So I think you guys will enjoy that, but I'd recommend to, take some time in the Muslim quarter.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm really looking forward because Oliver, I'm into sort of more drier foods. In the south here in Shenzhen, a lot of noodles. It's like they call it soup, don't they, the Chinese? But we call it more like a broth in the West. And I'm
Right.
not over keen on that kind of food. I like the kind of rojamor, sort
Oh,
of
nice.
lamb and all that. And apparently the food's very, very that kind of food in Xi'an. So I'm really looking forward to that when we
Nice.
go. So that'll be good.
Perfect. I got some comments in here. Muslim street next to the Drum Tower. Xi'an, about 3,000 years of history, 1,400 to 1,800 years. We're looking at that history. So
Whoa.
yeah, I knew it was just over that. Everything is good with me. You know, we're here I'm here in Canada right now. Missing China, of course. You know, we're supposed to be back in China this summer. Obviously, plans canceled. You know, no explanation needed for that. You know, but you know, we're living vicariously through the YouTube channel, connecting on great live streams like this, and I guess virtually traveling. That's kind of what everyone's doing. I think that's why people are enjoying these live streams and these YouTube videos, because it's the closest thing we've got to traveling, for the time being. So.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of comments on our videos like that saying, "Oh, it's great to be, I'm sitting here in the UK, I'm sitting here in the USA, and I'm in lockdown, and it's great to watch you guys sort of going around doing stuff." We connect with quite a lot of Chinese who are abroad, and I think a lot of them are really missing being home at this time. They're stuck in sort of like solitary confinement almost in their houses, and
absolutely,
just getting a good vibe that we're helping them get through that time, which is great. It's really good.
Big time. So Lee, let's go ahead and transition then, because that's a perfect segue to the first topic that we wanted to talk about. And
sure,
this is interesting because as I'm here in North America, I mean, we're seeing, you can call it the second wave, I guess. I think for America, we never actually handled the first wave. So, I think that's maybe America's strategy. How do you avoid the second, third, fourth wave? You never
keep going on through the first one.
You just keep going on to the first wave, But then seriously, though, I mean, we are seeing the U.S. is obviously. I mean, I think they had over 80,000 cases yesterday. They're just getting closer to that six-figure mark.
Day, right?
It was crazy. And, we have new lockdowns and, people are really starting to get worried. But my question is, what is the post, COVID-19 life like in China? Because you're obviously traveling domestically in China. I've seen a lot of photos in there. I've noticed like many people aren't even wearing masks now. So can you tell us more about, life post-COVID,
Absolutely. Well, I would say it's 95% back to how it was before it happened. I don't think we're ever going to get to 100%. Because I think until there's a sort of definitive vaccine, which even now I don't know whether that's ever going to be the case. I think people are always wearing. Now, one thing that's struck me in Shenzhen, mask wearing still seems to be, really, really kind of strict compared to a lot of other places we've traveled to, which is a bit strange to me. But just to give you an overview, there's a little bit more of a complication when you're traveling. So when you're getting on an aeroplane, you need to complete some paperwork. Generally, as a foreigner, you have to do it manually because some of the applications just don't recognize your passport. If you're a Chinese ID card holder, you're fine.
Right.
So occasionally, me and Ollie have to fill out a sort of paper form. And then obviously when you check into hotels, you have to show your health code. Specifically in Shenzhen, and this seems to vary a little bit from region to region, but my local kind of shopping mall, we still have to wear a mask when we go in there, and we still have to have a temperature check. But malls we've gone to in different areas of the country don't require that. I don't think mask wearing is something you have to do now, but still a lot of people are doing it. So really, apart from these sort of very small kind of, I won't even say they're inconveniences really, they add literally a minute or two to checking in on a flight and stuff like that. It's really not an inconvenience. And I think it's better to be safe than have it kick off again. Now, just to give you an idea how on top of it they are here.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago, so in Qingdao, they found about 6 cases. Within the space of 5 days, they tested the whole of the population of Qingdao. And
I saw that. That was incredible.
Yeah.
And
one other thing, we've just heard news that they found, I think it was 3 cases in Kashgar, and they
Okay.
pretty much locked down the whole of Kashgar, and they're testing pretty much all the people. I think in the first day they've already done something like 500,000. But it just shows you how on top of it they really are here. You know, they really take it very, very seriously, because they see that they want to keep it, you know, completely out of the society, the system, you know.
Yeah, that was amazing. I actually saw that. Obviously, that I saw that report. I shared it on my Facebook, just to my American friends. I'm connected. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida. Florida is kind of a hot spot for COVID. My parents are still both in Florida right now, and they've been obviously dealing with the pandemic there. It's been tough for them. They were originally planning to come out to Canada to visit us. Could not come. Had to cancel. Their trips, I should say. Now they actually would usually come twice a year. So it's been difficult for them. And I think what's interesting is it's really hard for a lot of Westerners to understand how China, has been able to do this, and I think that's one of the things that, I've seen almost a little bit of jealousy where people are like, hey, it's almost like it's not fair that China, they're ground zero for the virus. Which I don't actually believe now. I do believe that COVID-19 was circulating around the world, before it kicked off in Wuhan. We've seen, I think we've seen a lot of evidence now coming through that, that this is a very strange kind of disease. But it was interesting. I said, you want to know how, why China has done this is because you're not going to find a government in the world that moves as fast and efficiently as the Chinese government. In the United States, we don't even have like a procedure on wearing masks in the country yet. I mean, it's just kind of, it goes, state by state, governor by governor, you can, every state's different. And you just see that China coming back. All right, we're going to test all 9 million residents in 5 days.
In a few days,
it's wild.
It's insane. I mean, the same problem is happening now in the UK as well. The restrictions are totally confusing because they've got different areas have all got different plans of restrictions. And I think that the one thing I would say is here in China, the government sent out a unified message. And that the other thing I think is the people obey that message. They go along with that message. Right, you've got to wear masks. So pretty much everybody wears a mask. We didn't have all that, anti-mask rallies and all this kind of thing. I'm not going to wear a mask because it's my, freedom not to wear a mask. But we had none of that here.
Yeah, what's also really interesting, Lee, is I've had some people ask me here, and they've said, well, the difference in why China's been able to control this is because of the government in China. For instance, their people, they're not allowed to go out into the streets. When at the lockdown, like China is basically controlling all of their people. And I said, well, this is what you don't understand. It's a cultural thing as well. I said, because Chinese people are going to err on the side of caution, right? They're going to respect the virus. And the same thing, it's like, well, I'm going to wear a mask just, it's just better.
Just
right?
in case.
Just in case. And so, what's interesting is, being in Vancouver, which has a tremendously large Chinese population here, we've seen that. And I believe Vancouver has been one of the best spots to be, and specifically the city of Richmond, which is about probably, let's call it 60% Chinese here. We noticed the shopping malls, in March, considerably, before the lockdowns came in. You saw a considerable drop in attendance, to the malls because people were, people were just like, hey, there's a virus coming. Let's respect this. Kids were being pulled out of school in January. People were taking this virus very serious. So it's not that like the Chinese have to be told, they're definitely going to respect this and err on the side of caution. It's more, I guess, our, Westerners who are going to say, like that, I want my freedom, and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a definite in Asian countries. It's like, oh, I'm going to wear a mask because I'm worried about getting the virus. Whereas in Western countries, there's a lot of thought, oh, I ain't going to get the virus. I don't need to wear a mask. My eldest son works in a restaurant in the UK, and I was talking to him yesterday or the previous day, and he says it's unbelievable. He says probably 60% of the people who come in the restaurant don't even scan the code to say that they've been there. And he says mask wearing is like minimal. It's like they will only wear it almost if they're forced to wear it.
Yeah.
Whereas here in Asia, it's totally the opposite. The people wear the mask even if they don't need to, because they're nervous about actually contracting something. In Shenzhen, I would say even before COVID, and I guess this stems back to 10 or so years ago when they had the original SARS. Mm-hmm. Still, I would say 5 to 10% of people wore masks on the subway system here in Shenzhen, even before this outbreak. So, and I think for years and years and years to come, that a lot of people will still, you go on the subway in Shenzhen and you don't see a single person on the subway who's not wearing a mask, not a single person.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's just a lot of it just comes down to culture, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got our first super chat in of the night, and it's from Caliber Wings saying, search for YouTube for this video, China's battle against COVID-19. It's a great educational one. I have not watched that. I will put that on my list to watch.
Okay, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, great supporter of the channel, of all of our channels, Caliber Wings. So appreciate that.
I'm supposed to be meeting up with Caliber Wings at some point, and just time keeps going on and we get busy, but we will do it. I have a super chat here of Trevor Norman. What is your view on the Chinese list of products and companies which may have trouble getting their products out of China? Well, we are talking about sort of trade and technology a little later, so perhaps we'll come back to that one at that time, because I don't want to interrupt the flow too much at the moment.
Fair enough.
Another one off Trevor. In my pub in the UK, we do no mask, no entry. Oh, well, that's good. So Trevor Norman, who's a big supporter of our channel, he's married to a Chinese woman, I believe, in the UK at the moment. He has a pub. And what he's saying is that he won't let anybody in the pub if they're not wearing a mask, which is great. That's really good.
I think what we're seeing more in the West is that it comes down almost on a store by store basis. If we go to my local shopping mall here, you have some stores that are mandatory masks to get into the store, and then I think, but in the general shopping mall, it's masks are recommended but not required. But then some stores individually could. And, I mean, you definitely see. I think if you go to the Costco, for example, I think masks are required and things like that. So, still seeing that.
Yeah, I say here it's kind of, on a individual basis. You can go to some shopping malls and they don't suggest you wear a mask. Others, they won't let you in without it. But what you find actually, especially as a foreigner, I feel if I'm not wearing a mask, and many around me are, I feel strange that I'm not wearing a mask, and I will sometimes put a mask on. I tend not to wear a mask if I'm in the open air, but when I enter a premises, I'll generally put one on. And that's because I feel strange if I don't, because so many around me are. And I feel, even being a foreigner, I feel I don't want people to think that I'm setting a bad example. So I tend to put one on, although it's not necessary now, because as I say, there's virtually no cases. As soon as an odd case pops up, they're really on it. And I get a little bit annoyed when I've seen a couple of YouTubers in the West. They were suggesting that, COVID's still a thing here and that the governments are trying to hide it. And I really don't think that's the case at all. They know how important it is to identify any cases they have and deal with it. And I don't have the feeling at all that it's being hidden. We had a case in Shenzhen maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, and it was in Alibaba have that online sort of supermarket. I think it's called Herma.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, they found one worker in there who tested positive, and they shut the whole Shenzhen operation down for a week while they tested everybody. And I think they found another 1 or 2 people, but it was identified, it was dealt with, and before they opened back up, they tested everybody within the company, and that just shows you how sort of serious they take it, because they know that if they don't take it seriously, it starts to spread. It becomes a massive problem, just like it was in Wuhan in the early days.
Absolutely. And I think that's the other cultural difference as well. I mean, you look at the QR tracking codes, right? People are, required to have, remember back in the beginning of that pandemic, you
Mhm.
had to have the green light on your QR code. You're scanning at every place. There's basically a digital trail of everywhere you go. That's never going to I mean, that's never going to fly in the West, right? Because, it's like, well, we don't want our government knowing where we are at all times.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think, and again, it's just some of the things that there's just amazing, these difference in cultures between the West and the East. And I mean, it goes back down when we're talking about China, and I've had American friends. It's like, well, in America, we have freedom here. I have a gun
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
for protection. It's like, well, let me just give you the insight into China. Chinese people don't really feel the need to have a gun because they live in a society where you don't need a gun to be protected. You don't, it's one of the safest countries I've ever lived in. I mean, I just love that feeling of being in Shanghai. I mean, you could go out with friends at 2 a.m. You could have your wallet on and, a watch on, you're not worried about anything, and,
Absolutely.
I,
That
it's, it,
I can vouch for that 100%. When I first came to China sort of 12, 13 years ago, there was petty crime like pickpocketing and stuff like that. And even that kind of crime has virtually disappeared. And there is a lot of cameras about,
yeah,
but that is a fantastic deterrent. You have some problem. And I'll talk about that a little more when we get onto the technology section, because I have some interesting things I want to say about that. But
nice.
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's such a safe country, and many times not so much now because I'm a bit older, but when I was in Shanghai, we'd go to bars and come out 2, 3 a.m. and you'd walk home to your apartment or your hotel on your own, even
Yeah,
down sort of small side streets. Never ever felt threatened,
exactly.
No problem at all.
Actually, I saw this interesting story from Naomi Wu, who's she's the
Oh
sexy
yeah, I know.
cyborg, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. She's got about 1 million followers on YouTube. Great channel. Um, and anyway, she had said something about, I think, the CCTV cameras, where she had shared a story where somebody in Shenzhen had their wallet pickpocketed. She went to the police. They used the CCTV cameras. They identified the guy, facial recognized him, saw where his address was, went to the house, and it's like, "Did you steal a wallet?" He's like, "Yeah, I did. Give it back." And he basically just handed back the wallet, and it's just like, "Okay, no charges. You gave it back. Like, we're good to go." But it's like within like 20 minutes, the whole thing's sorted. And, I mean, people in the West, it's like, no, I don't want this facial ID. I don't want the CCTV camera. But
Yeah,
I think we've
yeah.
seen that, I mean, even before, when people are like, I always say, like, you can't say there's no crime. Like, you could get pickpocketed and stuff. That was certainly the crime that was happening back in the day. But it even seems like smaller things like this is now being better controlled,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
yeah, because of the cameras, people. I mean, I'll just tell you a little story. We were in Chongqing, and we wanted to get this time lapse photography from this bridge,
Yeah.
but we didn't want to stand there for like 2 hours while we're doing this time lapse. So we wanted to get something to eat. So what we did, we set the camera up.
Yeah.
It wasn't blazing on display, but it wasn't that hidden. And we left the camera there for 2 hours, went away and had dinner in a restaurant, came back, and the camera was still there. And I think it's because people will be nervous about taking something in case they are caught on camera.
Yes. Yes.
You
And
know, that's a massive deterrent.
And I don't really see I don't see that as an invasion of privacy, right? I mean, you're not,
Not at all.
theft is not a good thing. You're not supposed to be stealing other people's stuff.
Absolutely.
Let me answer one super chat, and then we'll get into the next segue here. This is
Cool.
from Ellen Fang. She sends a super chat in saying, "Thanks for telling the truth about China." Ellen, I think we have a great community on here. I know Jerry's here in the stream as well with This is China. I mean, all of us are passionate about China. That's why we started YouTube channels. We want to share insights into the country. It's our pleasure. I mean, it's our honor really to be sharing these insights, because I know many of the followers that follow my channel. My thing is, as an American, I'm trying to preach that U.S. angle of wanting the U.S. and China to work together. The world wins when the U.S. and China work together. That is something that I want to see, and I do believe that so many people fear China because they don't understand it. and we're trying to be that bridge to, to fill the gap and to help people understand China, because I think you're naturally going to fear something you don't understand. And, it's amazing still, even in 2020, how people still revert back to these old stereotypes, of China. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
it is quite crazy, but we're coming up to close to 800 people now in the stream.
That's
and
fantastic.
which is great. So thanks everybody for being here and for supporting. So I'm going to segue into the next one, which we're just talk a little bit, as I think this is going to segue us into talking about technology and stuff. I want to just give my thoughts on the U.S. election coming up. I get a lot of questions on this.
That's interesting, because you just mentioned Jerry was in the stream, and I just want to say that Jerry lives in Qingdao. So if you have any doubts about how good the testing is, go to Jerry's channel. He's got 3 videos on there that show you all about the testing in Qingdao and how it was done. But Jerry's interesting because he's convinced Trump is going to win the election. Now, I'm in the opposite camp to that. I don't think Trump's going to win at all. So I'll be really interested to hear what you're thinking about that, Cyrus.
It's interesting. I would have said, if you asked me two weeks ago, I would have been very much in Jerry's camp. I still believe that Trump's going to win. If I have to call, if I have to call somebody, I'm going to say that Trump's going to win. And I've had some loyal supporters, even on my channel, say, Cyrus, I love everything you do, but that's the one thing I think you're wrong. And I'll be honest, I'm okay if I'm wrong. I don't mind if I'm wrong on this fact. I guess the reason that I see is when you look at the crowds that follow Donald Trump, this kind of loyalty. I mean, he's almost like a cult figure in America, where he's just, and he's reached the status in America where he can kind of say anything and do anything. He's never going to lose that certain appeal. And for instance, I mentioned this in one of my earlier live streams a couple months ago. When it comes down to the Republican Party, that entire party swings on abortion. So, you're going to get, a very large percentage of votes only because, if you are pro-life. And that is a huge issue. So honestly, I mean, when Donald Trump says these ridiculous things and the actions that he does, the conservative groups, your Christian groups and things like that, they will always support the Republican candidate because of that abortion issue, which is just a huge thing. I think I don't know. I don't know if Biden. I mean, it's interesting because we're seeing, the polls are indicating that it's Biden. I'm not a huge fan of polls because I think that they're very. I saw one poll. It's like we surveyed 800 people. That's not a good survey. I mean, how is 800 people? It's too small of a sample size, right?
Absolutely, but I think it is.
I think my biggest thing, I always say this, is, I'm not really too concerned about the 2020 election because I don't believe either candidate is the change that we need to see in America today. I don't think Biden is going to be. I think if Biden does win, I do believe that you're going to see Kamala going to be the first female president. I believe she'll be there within the next 18 to 24 months, because I just don't think
that would be really interesting. That would. That would be interesting.
And I just don't see Biden going to full 4 years. I think Trump, he's the problem though, is that, when you look at Michael Pompeo, this is interesting how he comes out and he says, China is the greatest threat to democracy in the world. And I don't agree with that statement. I think that, the U.S. is really showing the world, they're making a mess of democracy, because we know no matter what the election result is on November 4th, the other side is going to protest it. They're going to say this was, there's fraud, there's fraud involved. The legitimacy of this election is questioned. So this whole concept of American democracy and democracy being this great form of government, that is really going to be questioned after this election, because whoever wins, whether it's Trump or Biden, the other side is going to oppose it. They're going to appeal it. It's going to be chaos in America.
This is the thing. I think it's not. There's a case that a lot of people won't vote for. They'll vote for Biden just because he's not Trump.
Absolutely.
So not because of his policies, but because he's not Trump. And I find it sad in a country where there's a lot of smart people there, and the choices of an election, it's like, holy shit, it's like the bad or even worse kind of thing scenario. It's not there's nobody there that Americans can really get behind and go, oh, we want to vote for this guy because we love his policies and we really think what he's going to do is great. I think we're not. And also similarly to the UK, where you have this situation where you can get somebody elected that only literally gets maybe 40% of the public vote, because we have a sort of regional system. You have this, like, the electoral college.
Correct.
So you can have swathes of people not even vote for that candidate, yet they still get into be the president or in the UK case, the prime minister. And I think that's a crazy situation.
It is. I mean, and that's how we saw in 2016, right? Trump lost the popular vote, but won the election, and I think that we could potentially see that again, where he might win the electoral. It'll be interesting. I mean, it'll be entertaining. I mean, so now I want to talk about, how this relationship is going to, how China and the United States relationship is going to, go on. I think what's interesting is what I've seen as an American is that both now the Republican and the Democrat, both of them are really using this anti-China rhetoric. And so, I mean, obviously Biden can't come out and say, I want to build great relationships with China, because that's not going to be popular
lose
right
the
now.
vote. Yeah.
Oh, he'll lose the vote, right? I mean, Trump has been so anti-China, no matter what Biden truly wants to do, he's going to have to take that stance to some degree. I think that, I think certainly a Biden presidency would be better, for China. But I think on the flip side, it's really interesting. I've talked to a lot of Chinese, and many of them is just, I think with China, it's like, hey, you know what? I don't mind if Trump wins again. Look at the last 4 years. I mean, can we be honest? Has America been made great again the last 4 years? Is America better in 2020 than it was in 2016? I think most of the people outside of America would obviously say no. But what's interesting is these loyal Trump supporters are going to say yes. It is better now than it was before. And I have a lot of family members that are hardcore Trump supporters, and they would argue with me. That's like, we are getting better. I mean, he's the man. And so it's hard when you don't see your country from the outside, which is kind of one of the biggest things I've learned as an expat is you go abroad to learn about other countries, but also you go abroad to learn more about your own country.
I'd agree with that. You seeing it from afar, you have a very different view. I felt that with the UK as well. When you're outside and you look back in, you see it very differently to when you're there inside, because I think your decisions are swayed a lot more by those people around you as well. So I think that plays into it. So it is interesting you say that, because I feel exactly the same about the UK too.
Yeah. So let me just answer a little super chat here from Winston Chow. It's just said sensible and logical from Cyrus as always. Winston, I appreciate that. Just appreciate all the support, guys. And, that's what we're just trying to do, is try to bring some rational decision making and some thinking to these issues. But I think when we're talking about US and China, I find it's going to be hard to really go back to the relationship of pre-2016, between these two countries for a while. I mean, there's been a lot of damage done. I don't think if we switch to Biden, like all of a sudden, bam, all right, US and China are going to have these great relationships again. It's going to take time. It might take 5 to 10 years, maybe longer, for these to really heal this relationship. But I do think you're going to see is obviously China, they are moving ahead with innovation. They're moving ahead with domestic trade. I think China is going to look less and less at America as a trading partner. And, I think that is what's interesting about the United States, is that they are moving in the total opposite direction of China. I mean, it was amazing. I read a Wall Street Journal article yesterday, which is probably the most ridiculous piece of content I've read about COVID-19. The author, based in London, never been to China in his life, not a single day in China. He says he's concluding maybe Beijing is actually jealous of the U.S. moving forward. And I'm just like,
what? Oh my God.
And so he basically said, it's like, the US has so many options, we can, renegotiate trading with the EU. We basically have Trump's option of basically, shutting down all of these trade partners and just focusing on, domestic. And I said, I don't understand how people can be this naive. In order to grow a country, you need a global economy. You know, you need to report on imports and exports. Having trade partners around the world is what's going to grow your country. So you look at China with the One Belt, One Road initiative. I mean, they're building trading partners and bridges around the world, you know, really helping hundreds of millions of people, you know, around the world in this effort. And you look at the U.S. is like saying, no, we don't want to trade anymore. We want to be completely reliant on ourselves, bring the factories back to America, make only in America, only do in America. So I see this, and I think that's what's going to be with China, is they're going to say, look, you know, if this is the route you want to go down, you know what, I mean, we're a big enough country. We can, you know, we're going to support domestic trade. We're going to, I mean, look at the high-speed rails connecting all of the cities in China. I mean, the domestic economy is just going to boom in China. So those are my thoughts on these two countries moving forward. The relationship's going to be strained. You know, I kind of feel China's ready. Like, they're almost like, if you want to work with us, we're here. But if you want to decouple from us, that's okay too, because we're doing our thing.
Yeah, they've got a lot of options. I mean, I think a lot of countries outside China don't realize or forget how big of an internal market they've got. You know, it's absolutely huge. And what you've had over the last sort of 15 years, you've had a huge amount of people move into the Chinese middle class. And they have money to spend. You know, they want new cars, they want nice things for their houses, and the sort of Chinese manufacturing. If you go back sort of 15 years, manufacturing in China, well, these are the good quality ones we've made for the export market, and these are the shitty quality ones we're going to put into the domestic market. Well, all that's completely turned around now. You've got these middle class Chinese who are demanding this higher quality, and they're prepared to pay for it. We were at an e-bike manufacturer in Taizhou about 4 to 6 weeks ago, and I was looking at the e-bikes. I was like, these are really nice e-bikes. They're really smart. And says, yeah, says, but you know, up until sort of 2 years ago, they were all for export because they're so expensive. You know, we make really good quality. We export them to Europe and other countries. Says, but what we've seen over the last 2 years is the demand for the internal market is really now picking up, because these are e-bikes. They're selling for, you know, between 8,000 and 12,000 RMB. So, you know, Chinese have been used to paying sort of 2,000 or 3,000 for their e-bikes.
Right.
But they're saying we've now got a huge, you know, amount of internal market that are prepared to pay, you know, 10,000 for an e-bike, because they can see the quality, they can see why it's worth 10,000. They have the money to pay for that. So that's one thing. I think the other thing as well is that, you know, over maybe the last 10 years, China have really moved their sort of balance, where they were very dependent on export. Maybe 40% plus of their economy was export. That, I think, is now down to less than about 20%.
That's right.
So they're not reliant on export anywhere near as much as they were. And interestingly, if you look at the Belt and Road Initiative, they're targeting a lot of like African countries. And they're the next growth engine of the world. You know, Europe is saturated, the US is saturated, whereas those African countries, they're the next sort of, you know, big opportune market. And China saw that years ago, and that's why they're doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. So, Lee, what's your prediction really for, like, say, Q4? You know, I mean, I think in China, like, for instance, we saw obviously Q1, that's when you know, the virus was in China, really you know, certainly a negative growth at that time. Q2 started a rebound, Q3 growth. I mean, I guess China's really, I mean, like you said, 95% back to its you know, COVID conditions.
Yeah.
I mean,
and during that COVID time, there was a lot of pent up sort of spending power. And I think that's now being released. You know, initially, after things had cleared up here, people were still kind of nervous to go out. And I think that nervousness is now gone. You know, I can go to shopping malls now and they're as busy as they were. And you know how I judge it? When we go out to eat on a Friday or a Saturday night, you know, sort of a month after COVID had sort of cleared up, you could still walk in and get a table almost straight away. Now those popular restaurants, you're waiting an hour to get into them. So you know, people are going back out there. And I think that will continue through. And I think as you know, we've got a big shopping event coming up, which is the
Yeah,
11/11. You know,
yeah, the Shuangzi, right? The Double 11. That's going to be amazing
absolutely.
because here in the West, we just had the Amazon Prime Day, which is a big shopping day, obviously for Amazon. I'm excited because every year, on the November 11th, the Double 11, Alibaba breaks its own record. I think it was around 35 billion US dollars they sold last year. I might be wrong on that number, but it was something extravagant, for that event. And I think, like you mentioned, there's a lot of pent up, like people are ready to celebrate. I think, I think it's going to be massive this year. I think you're going to see, China, we're talking about China's digital economy. This is quite interesting. I've got some stats here. Since 2014, China's digital economy has accounted for more than 50% of China's economic growth and contributed around 67% of China's economic growth in 2019. So in 2019, that digital economy represents around 36% of China's GDP, looking at just the digital economy and how it is moving so far in tech. And I think that's a great segment. And I got a super chat here from, let me just address this from Barrett. Barrett is a great supporter of my channel, a Patreon subscriber as well. Just always appreciate the support. Sent in a super chat. I watched a great video, China battle against COVID-19. I believe that was the one that somebody recommended earlier. Right before watching your live chat, you two are my favorite YouTubers, knowledgeable and fair. Barrett, thank you so much for the super chat. Always, again, thank you for your support. We're so happy you're here today in the stream with us, and as well with everybody. We've just passed over 1,000. We're coming up on close to 1,100 viewers right now on this live stream. So this is great.
That's great. So can I just deal with a couple of super chats? Sorry. So we've got
absolutely.
Caliber Wings, what is the latest on the vaccine development in China or the West based on your latest knowledge? I believe there's one Chinese company who are now issuing vaccines in the UK, in China to select people. I think they are offering it to students who are going to study abroad. I think very soon they will get the go ahead. And I think the bottleneck is going to be with the manufacture rather than the development. I think they've had some really large scale testing in South America, and that seems to have gone very, very well. Oh, a super sticker here off Ellen Fang. Thank you very much for that. Winger Wang, happy to see you guys talking about China. Appreciate that super chat. And Fluffing Fluff, do you think democracy has become a cult? People are very emotional and illogical. Democracy has become the new culture revolution in a way. What do you think about that, Cyrus?
Well, I've made some recent videos about this, and my last video was entitled, does the United States government, care about Chinese people? And I said, I quoted in there, Michael Pompeo coming out and saying, I always want, the U.S. government wants the best for Chinese people. But I believe the real thing is they want to the United States wants to put democracy into China. There's no secret about that. I think what we need to understand is that democracy is a good form of government, but what we've seen in the last really 5 or 6 years in America is just how much it can become divided. Now, someone here, I think we've got. There's a guy. Hold on, I've got a little super chat here from Pacific Flooring, sending in a little sticker. You are amazing. Thank you for the super sticker. We've got a little troll here, Verano. Yeah, you have free speech in America. You don't have free speech in China. Well, it's funny because this is one of the concepts that I hear is people say, in America, we can go on Saturday Night Live and we can make fun of our president in America. We have that freedom. And I said, you can't do that in China. Well, here's the amazing thing. It's kind of nice to have a leader in China that you don't need to make parody videos about, I mean, that's not something that Chinese people culturally, they have a respect to their leader. Chinese people aren't going to want to make fun of their president. But if you have a president like Donald Trump who acts the way he does, yeah, I guess that you have a lot of content, to make these videos, and sure, you have the freedom of speech to do that. But does freedom of speech really exist? I mean, there's so many things that you cannot say, in the West right now. And I'll give you a great example. Recently we just had a local election here in Vancouver. And one of the candidates, he said he's a Caucasian man, and they asked him. They said, what do you feel? What do you feel about white privilege? He's like, and he said, well, growing up in Vancouver, it's very ethically diverse. I have, Indian friends and Asian friends. And for me, everybody here is Canadian. I don't look at the color. I feel we're all equal. And he got absolutely slammed for that because the moderator said, is like, oh, that's the worst kind of white supremacy. You don't realize your privilege. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to say? Like what answer do you want me to give? And it's just, it's become so extreme in the West that, again, like I'm a member of the Professional Golfers Association of America. We had our president sent out a tweet, where he was, having a little jab towards a golfer in the UK. And he said, oh, you're acting like a little girl. And then immediately he got fired for that tweet because it's like, oh, that's very sexist. You can't, you're associating being weak with being a girl, fired. And so it's like we always say we have this freedom of speech, but it is so limited in so many ways. So I do long-winded answer, but I think that so many people don't understand, all of the details of democracy, and we believe, oh, we're so free, we have all these things. I don't agree with that.
I think also there's this thing where when you have so-called freedom of speech, it's freedom to lie. I mean, there's laws in China that you can't sort of go on social media and make up things. You can't spread false rumors or lies. There's actually a law that protects against that. And personally, I think that's a good thing because you've got huge organizations in the West that just peddle blatant lies, and so many people believe it because they get beat behind that. Publications like the Epoch Times, for example, they just come out with, massively unsubstantiated claims, and they have a lot of funding from somewhere. And, you say that enough to people and people start believing it, and it's based on no fact whatsoever. So,
Absolutely.
you have got these problems that are caused. But I think you did a video about that, didn't you, on the Epoch Times?
I did one on the Epoch Times, and it's hilarious because when on that video, Epoch Times actually has targeted my video, and they run their ads right before that video. But even the ads are just so blatant. It's just like it's so cheesy. That there'll be two people in the kitchen, and it's like, have you heard of the Epoch Times? No, tell me more about it. Well, it's the only one talking about the CCP virus, because China planned this in a laboratory, and they're secretly trying to take over the world. Really? Yes, and the Epoch Times is the only one that is reporting this. I mean, it's just nonsense. And here's a sticker from
bullshit.
From Kevin Zed. He says, if democracy gave us Trump and Biden, we'd rather not have it. I mean, that's
and I've got another interesting super chat here from Trevor Norman. China, 95% approve of their leaders. USA might sometimes just get over 50%. So I mean, this is something that the USA, Mike Pompeo, just doesn't seem to get, that the Chinese people are very happy with their government. Of course, it's not going to be 100% of the people. No government will ever get 100%, satisfaction from all the people. But China are ranked one of the highest, worldwide for having satisfaction in their government. And you speak to any Chinese person, they will tell you, anybody over the age of sort of 30, 40 years old here, they will tell you their life has improved absolutely massively in the last 30 to 40 years. It's just unrecognizable to the life they had 40 years ago, the life that many Chinese have now. And I think, that they're not sort of going to criticize the government for delivering a sort of massively higher standard of living to them. It's just not going to happen.
And what's interesting about that, Ali, and I'm gonna comment on that, is that people sometimes say, like, what's some of the negative things about China, and what are some of their challenges? I'll say this is an interesting one, because if you look at what the Chinese government has done over the last 40 years, I do believe this puts a lot of pressure on the government, because Chinese have now become so accustomed to their life improving, and that, the economy is growing, their life is improving every year. This is what the Chinese have become accustomed to. So it does put continued pressure on the government to continue to deliver these results. they know moving forward, they're going to have to keep driving this. They're going to have to keep improving the life of Chinese people. However, I believe that China's government is really positioned well to do this because of this. And this is a really famous quote that I love about between the difference between China and America. In China, you can't change the party, but you can change the policy. And you can see how much adaptable China's government is. They are not stuck in their ways. They are very progressive thinking. They can change and move very quickly because they're a one-party state. Now, in China, in America, on the flip side, as we know, you can certainly change the party. We are on a Republican party where we could completely switch to the Democrat within a few short weeks. We'll see. But, so you can change parties, but it's very difficult to change the policy. And that is why I find it so difficult for America to move forward, because if you want to pass something, it just takes years, to get through all of these steps and people arguing and so that's the interesting thing that, this is China's biggest problem going forward. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think something else comes into play there. Like in the UK, we have things that need addressing, but because it's a policy that won't be popular, no government will enact the policy, simply because they know they won't get re-elected. So we have this cycle in the UK, and I guess America's somewhat similar, that they will make these sort of 4-year policies all the time, so they look good in that last year when it comes to re-election time. So policies that need to be much more long-term just become political footballs, where you don't get that in China. They'll meet here and go, right, in 15 years' time, this is where we want to be. So what do we need to do at 5 years and 10 years to get there? Exactly. Because they know they can enact these much longer-term policies. And generally, those longer-term policies are beneficial to the people. Whereas I feel in the UK, a lot of the policies are beneficial to getting themselves re-elected, not necessarily the people.
Absolutely. Well, the same thing with, we're in healthcare is a huge issue in America. And we see Donald Trump saying, we're going to have a brilliant plan. We're going to replace Obamacare. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be brilliant. I love it. But it's like, well, where's this plan? Like, you've been in for 4 years. You have
he never comes up with it.
You never had the plan. It's just always like, it's coming. Like, we're going to come up with something that's going to be great. There's still no plan in place. It is a difficult one. So, but let's talk more about let's go. So we're coming up. We got 1,250 people here in the live chat now. So again, thank you everybody for your support. We're so happy that you are here watching and sending in questions and being with us. But we're talking about the future of China. We've talked about a lot of things so far. A big one is going to be technology. And there's not a better team on the ground in China that are traveling and seeing this technology than Lee and Ollie. They are all over. Doing great, doing great things. So tell us more. Tell us about some of these factories. I think, for instance, I want to talk about 5G, because 5G, here in Canada, everybody's saying, what's 5G going to be like? I can't wait. And so let's talk about 5G and how this is changing.
Okay, so recently we went to the Huawei Connect 2020, and we witnessed a presentation about how they've implemented 5G in the Shenzhen's Boan airport, and that was a real eye opener. So for people now who are allowed to pre-register. So if you don't have a criminal record, and if you're a regular user of the airport, you can pre-register to be on the airport sort of database. And literally you can then go through every step of arriving at the airport and check in, all through facial ID. And 5G's allowed this because the bandwidth is much bigger and the latency is much lower. And then moving on from there, some of the things they've implemented. So they've now implemented the AI for the gate allocation of so when an aeroplane comes in, everybody's experienced this. Sometimes you have to park on the tarmac and you walk down the stairs and you have to get on a shuttle bus.
Correct.
So using 5G and AI, they've reduced that by a significant amount, which now means that an additional 2.6 million passengers a year don't have to go on those shuttle buses. And throw that forward to the amount of sort of energy that's saved and pollution that isn't happening, because you imagine 2.6 million people a year that now don't have to go on a shuttle bus. So that's a lot.
That is a lot.
that's a huge amount. And another really cool thing, they've deployed 10,000 HD cameras in and around the airport. So this is in the airport and outside the grounds. So previously there was flight delayed because they knew a passenger had checked in, but he hadn't turned up at the gate on time to board. So they would then have to send people around the airport to look for these, family, or maybe he's in the bar or he's in the shop.
Right.
Now, with the facial recognition, they can find within a few seconds where this person is and go get him. And they've improved the on-flight departure times by a huge amount just because of that. So they've got all these initiatives. And then I think before the show started, we discussed about 5G on the new metro lines here in Shenzhen. So previously they would have camera recordings, and then maybe you've left your bag on the metro. So previous to the 5G, you would have to go and report this, and then they would get all the camera footage in the evening when the train stopped. Now it all sends the footage in real time. So if you've left your bag on the metro, you can describe it, and they can look at that footage in real time and go to an operator and say, oh, this bag is here, or we've seen this person taking it, and they can retrieve it within like a much smaller amount of time as previously. So they can reunite people with their baggage. And I'll just tell you about factories. So we went to one. This wasn't actually the factory. It was a demonstration of the factory on a smaller scale. But they are doing this sort of 5G manufacturing where you can bespoke design your domestic appliance. So you can have a fridge freezer, you want a bigger freezer compartment, you want a smaller fridge compartment, you want green doors and blue sides. And you can watch this being manufactured online. And then when you order it, it scans your face. So when you pick it up from the factory or the delivery point, it'll just scan you and it knows exactly which one. And they're bringing it so much into the manufacturing process. I feel China is so far ahead because they've already done the first stage of the 5G infrastructure. Shenzhen was the first city actually in China, and I presume the world, to have full 5G coverage.
Yeah.
And they've done the 2020 rollout of 5G in the whole of China is 3 months ahead of where they said they were going to be. So the amount of radio mass they said they would have by the end of this year, they've already reached that now, and they're continuing to roll out even more. And I feel that, many countries are still in that process where China have moved on to the next stage of 5G development, which is integrated into manufacturing and services.
Absolutely. Well, it's amazing. I think one of the things I've heard is, you want to see the past of China, visit Beijing. You want to see the present, so you go to Shanghai. And if you want to see the future of China and probably really the world, you need to go to Shenzhen. And like you said, I mean, I just find it amazing because we know that, Shenzhen is the new Silicon Valley of the world. I mean, you have these amazing tech startup companies that are there. Like you said, it's the first city in the world to go completely 5G around. Mm-hmm. I think there's the new driverless bus system. I mean, they're all eco buses that are going down in Shenzhen. This is all powered by 5G, right? You can't have it powered by anything other than 5G. And so I kind of feel that China's really is now, it's just amazing how much China has changed. I mean, they're almost like the blueprint kind of moving forward for the world. Like, this is what our world could look like. We want to talk about reducing carbon emissions. Yeah, let's go to an all electrical, inner city bus fleet, all controlled by 5G. Wow, that sounds amazing. When is that technology going to happen? Oh, it's happening in Shenzhen right now. Like that's where we're experimenting with this. Right. And I love your videos, Lee, because you do so many interesting factory tours. And that's something, obviously, as a tourist, and actually most expats that live in China, right, we don't get access to factories in China. So you guys really provide us a really cool, insights into those. I saw your one factory that was, an auto manufacturer. that produced 90% of the car was done by robots. And those scenes with your camera just looking down that assembly line, and it's just sparks flying, and it's like, wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
all
how many
those robot welders. That was really pretty cool. That was. I mean, I've never seen anything like that at all. I mean, you know, that even the you know, that the 5G is really bringing in safety as well. So we went to one factory, Sunwood, which makes sort of really heavy machinery for quarries and stuff like that. And they've got situations now where you don't need excavator drivers in dangerous situations, because they can sit in an office and through 5G technology, they're controlling that excavator or crane or whatever it is in those quarries or in the mines or this. And that's it. So if Bob the driver phones in sick on you know, Monday morning, he's needed in Shanghai. Oh, but we've got another driver in, you know, Guangdong. You know, he can drive it from his desk.
Yeah.
You just can't get your head around how smart this is, really. You know, you could literally have drivers operating quarry machinery the other side of the world. You know,
didn't I see that in when you guys did the live stream from one of the tech conferences there. There was something about like I believe it was almost like a taxi service. The same thing. It was powered by 5G, where you could have the driver of the car could essentially be driving from his home, you know, all powered by 5G, and you know, be picking up you know, taxis. Oh, I think we might have lost Lee actually here. Hold on here. There, he's back in the stream. Okay, perfect.
I lost you there for a second.
No worry. We switch sides. I want to address a quick super chat here. This is from THFP Nico. Thank you both for the continuous efforts of bridging between Western countries and China, and most importantly, originated from the foreign side. I know this will not be enough, but hey, Cyrus, you deserve a better camera, just like Lee does. Lee, I do like your setup today. I'm actually on a webcam on my computer, hence why it's a little blurry. But Lee, you got the nice setup, buddy. You're looking very sharp in that. You're looking like you're in a professional studio. So yeah, I need to get that set up too, so we can bring better quality products to the people here. You know, we love this live stream. We're coming up on 1,300 people here now live. So guys, thank you so much for your continued support and spending time with us. This is really we love doing
really
live shows.
Appreciated.
Because it's I think it's fun for us as well. You know, we get to chat, but also you know, it's just a little bit more informal. You guys can get to know us a little bit better, and we just love answering questions and talking about China. And I mean, yeah, these factories are just incredible. You know, and I think that's what, you know, China is really showing to the world, you know, is how this technology is going to be a part of our lives. And you know, it is you know, it is going to be the best for this future, is having 5G and working together. So I hope the West can learn. But it's, you know, it's interesting, Liz, when I look at, you know, with the whole COVID thing, I remember I was talking to, you know, some people in America, and they were saying, you know, people are asking us not to use cash right now because of COVID. And it's like, you know, it's actually the government's trying to control us, you know, so we need to protest and we need to use cash. He's like, you know, and I was like, oh, it's really funny because we don't even use cash anymore in China. I mean, it exists, but it's pretty much, I mean, it's just amazing having everything on WeChat, paying on WeChat, Alipay. I remember I went back to Shanghai last year for a business trip, and I had some renminbi notes with me, and I was, you know, wanted to get rid of them. And it was just so funny how, you know, every time in the restaurant, you know, it's obviously
wants it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously like, oh, you're ready to pay the bill. Like, here's our QR code, and I'm that awkward foreigner, and it's just like, you know, almost the side, like, I gotta get change, and you know.
Yeah, I've got an interesting super chat here off Caliber Wings. I'm interested to find out more about digital RMB. So about a week or two ago, as you may be aware or may not be aware, China are sort of testing their digital RMB, and the test, the first large scale test was in Shenzhen. And what they did, people had to enter a lottery. So they had, I don't know, you know, a few million apply, and I think 200,000 of those people were each given 200 or 300 RMB, and they had to download this new digital wallet, and then they had 7 days to spend it. And it was so they gave away, I think it was 10 million I may be wrong on the figures, but they gave away a significant amount of RMB to 50 or 100,000 people or whatever. And then they had 7 days to spend it. And there was about 3,000 or 4,000 outlets that could accept this digital RMB. And it was basically the largest test they'd done. And this is a precursor to launching the fully fledged, nationwide digital RMB scheme. And I think this is something that also frightens the US because they see it as a potential challenge to the dollar. Because I think the Western countries are much further behind a digital currency than China is.
I think they're really behind in everything right now. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint something that the West is exceeding China. When you come down to technology, where is the West, exceeding China right now? I mean, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint that.
And I think this is why they're attacking Huawei, because I think they see Huawei are really starting to become very advanced with some of their technology. I mean, we went to this Huawei Connect 2020, and I keep up on what Huawei and some of the other tech companies do, but I was pretty amazed at some of the stuff I saw there. I had no idea. I mean, I had no idea Huawei were big into solar energy. But
yeah. Well, I think the I've lost Lee again. I'm going to let him jump back in the stream here. The interesting thing about Huawei is that 10% of their profits that they are generating is reinvested back into research and development. So Lee, you're back in the stream. I was talking about Huawei. One of the great things that they do is they take 10% of 10% of their revenue or their profit is just directly back into research and development.
It's a huge amount.
It's a huge amount. I think it was something like, I believe it's something like $18 billion US in 2019 that they spent on R&D. And this is why you can see that they are, they overtook Samsung this year as the leading cell phone manufacturer. It's quite amazing when you look at Huawei as a company. They're in 170 different countries and regions around the world. I was on a Huawei debate recently, teaming up with some really interesting people around the world. We had a professor, top 100 economist, who joined us from Turkey. And he was talking about, basically like in Greece and Turkey and Huawei, how basically they have, really transformed that region. People there, are very trustful towards, Huawei. They think they love the technology. It was interesting. Michael Pompeo went to Athens, Greece, gave a speech and essentially said, you guys need to break away from Huawei. You need to start getting away from China. And he said, basically the sentiment of everyone there was like, okay, great. Let's double down on our commitment to Huawei. It's like anything the U.S. says, especially Pompeo, we're going to do the opposite. So let's go upgrade that Huawei phone.
Yeah, it's kind of like America are trying to push some of these countries into the slow lane. It really is. I mean, the stuff they've got. I mean, I mentioned earlier about the airports. I'm actually working on a video about that because some of the stuff I saw was just amazing. I just didn't even know that kind of thing existed. And Huawei are already running it. They've got this whole system. They have different systems for different industries. So they've got they have this system for inspection of power lines, which uses drones and then feeds back, and then it's looked at by AI. So previously they had to send engineers up pylons. Now these drones just fly along the pylons and along the power lines, feed back the video into Huawei's AI system via 5G, and it goes, yeah, there's a problem with that pylon. You need to send an engineer out to it. There's a potential problem happening with that power line, and it just makes these industries so much more efficient and cost effective. And I just don't see that happening in a lot of Western countries because they just still don't have that 5G infrastructure.
No, they don't. And so, as the other interesting thing is, I saw earlier this summer, the United States was battling with all these wildfires, and they were talking about, it was earlier. I think earlier the United States had wanted to kind of ban these Chinese drones coming into America, and it was funny because right about that same time I was on Douyin and I saw videos of basically the Chinese firefighting units that were attaching hoses to drones and were using all these drones, to basically, put out all the fires, in China.
Wow.
So it was a really fascinating video. I'll have to share that. But it was at a firefighting station. They have this whole building that's on fire for a test simulation, but you have 2 drones hooked up with a hose, and they're just droning now the whole building to basically get it all out of water. And it was quite funny because it's like, yeah, U.S. is burning with these wildfires there, and then, there was even rumors that it was China's fault because of these wildfires.
Of course it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's like anytime we can, China's always, always the scapegoat. But it's just amazing, to see this technology. We're talking about drones and how it's changing. Obviously, DJI, right there in Shenzhen. Yeah, right there in Shenzhen as well. Awesome.
They have some cool stuff. They used a lot of their drones here to disinfect places in the coronavirus time. So they've got some big industrial ones that have 10, 20 gallon tanks on, and they normally use for crop spraying. Right, and they were disinfecting school playgrounds and this kind of thing with them. So it just shows you how technology can work to help. I'm just going to deal with a couple of super chats if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Trevor Norman, Huawei P40 pre-sales on AliExpress sold out in 28 seconds. iPhone took longer to sell out. Yeah, they've just actually released the Mate 40 here, which looks a very, very impressive piece of kit. And just on, you were talking about Huawei. We not too long ago went to their development campus in Dongguan, and they have 20,000 engineers working there. 20,000. So where you get these people saying, oh, they copy technology, with like you just said, the amount they invest into R&D, and with 20,000+ engineers, they're coming up with some pretty cool stuff. On the topic of technology, what are both of your thoughts on the topic of smart cities in China in the future? Do you think it will be the next big thing for startups and companies to go into? Just before we answer that, I'll do a couple of others that I think we have. Oh no, that's the last one. Okay. So what do you think? What do you think about smart cities?
Smart cities. Well, I think I think what we're seeing is, like we talked about, you look at Shenzhen being the base center for a city that's connected on 5G. Really, Shenzhen is kind of China's little experimental city, right? Like if they're going to institute something new, they're going to first try it in Shenzhen. If it rolls out successfully, they're going to go nationwide. There's no doubt about it. Within I'm not going to give a time frame, but down the future, you're going to have, Shanghai, Beijing, all of these cities are going to be, completely 5G. They're going to take this model of what Shenzhen is doing, and they're going to apply these to their other big markets, throughout China. So, I think, it's the same thing, I think, with the bullet train, when I say is, one of the things that was amazing when China said, we want to come out and we want to build a high-speed bullet train. Many people said, you can't. The landmass is too big in China. Logistically, it's impossible. It works for smaller countries, something like a South Korea, a Japan. You need something smaller. China said, no, let's do it. And, they have, and it's a tremendous cost. Tremendous cost to put this in, but you're investing in an infrastructure that is going to improve the lives of people. And, you look at a city like, Tianjin, even Suzhou, 30 minutes away from
absolutely
Shanghai, right? And now, you could have a thing where you could live in Shanghai, in Suzhou, and you're now, working in Shanghai. That's not totally unfeasible.
We were with a guy from the company. He was saying that he was actually complaining that the property prices are rocketing in Suzhou because many people are living in Suzhou, working in Shanghai. Exactly. Because it's literally 25 minutes on the train. Just on smart cities, we saw again another Huawei smart city demo, and what they can now do, they can detect a car accident, and they can dispatch emergency services to that car accident without any human involvement. And they take it one step further. Once they deem how seriously injured that patient might be, straight away the emergency services can know which hospital they need to take it to, which can best deal with the injuries that patient has got. And that's all done through smart cities. It blows my mind. And they were saying they deployed it in I think it was, I don't know if it's Amsterdam, but a city in Holland. and the crime rate had dropped by 28% after they deployed. Because what they do, they will watch out for suspicious behavior and use an AI algorithm to detect suspicious behavior. So they can then dispatch police to that area before anything happens. So it's, you know, to drop a crime rate 28% in a city is pretty big.
And you look at we look at talking about crime. I mean, just look at America right now and just these protests, these violence and these stuff. And that's kind of the other thing that's really tough is getting a little bit away from our technology talk. But I mean, it's something that's interesting when you know, as an American, when people say, China doesn't have human rights. And I said, well, you know what the most basic human right is? The most basic human right is safety. That's the most important thing that a country has to guarantee for its civilization. In America, our government we cannot provide safety to Americans right now. I mean, it is very dangerous. I mean, this is kind of an interesting. I mean, this is to show you this. My 76-year-old mother in Florida. She called me earlier this year and she's like, Cyrus, I think I need to buy a gun, for protection. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, Mom, like this is crazy. And she's just like, yeah, she's like, what gun should I buy? And I'm like, I have no idea. I was like, I don't. But this just shows like, and I'm not going to say this is all of America. I mean, this is, again, I'm just sharing my personal experience, but this just shows you, what, my 76-year-old mother does not feel comfortable in her house just because of the riots, the police, all of these things, I mean, we have people in America saying, let's defund the police, let's take away weapons from police, that would be a safer America. Really? Like that's, I mean, it's craziness right now. So
it really is.
I mean, it is sad. And I think that's another thing that I want to talk a little bit about is just, I think in the West, we always have this, a lot of Americans say, China is trying to take over the US. China is trying to, they want the worst for the US. I don't think I've ever heard a Chinese person really talk negatively about the US, as far as like, I hope they fail. I hope they do all these things. I mean, I think looking at America and how much we've struggled, I think many Chinese are just like in the world. I mean, here in Canada, people are just like, it's just kind of sad. It's like, wow, like US is such a great country, and it is a great country, but you're almost like, wow, look how far you guys have slid down. And, it's just so,
it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because even how much America is attacking China now, I still don't hear many Chinese talk negatively about America, know, and I think it's partly because they see they're hurting in the near term, but I think they deep down know that in the longer term, they will win. They will be the winners, because to some extent, with the whole technology thing, I feel America is shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. And it was very interesting. Bill Gates, who's the one of the sort of leading voices in technology, the guy's very smart. He says he was asked about this situation of denying China the chips. And he says, all you're doing is just pushing China harder to develop them themselves quicker. And when they do, the US will pay the price.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to talk about this chip development, and that's amazing. I feel the exact same way, because I know that if China gets pushed into a corner, their only option is to develop the chips, right? They don't have another option. And the Chinese government is going to throw every resource they have at this problem.
Absolutely,
and it is a complex problem, right? It's
a very complex problem.
It's not something let's put $100 billion and the best researchers in a room, and within 20 days we get a solution. I mean, it's going to take years. But I mean, you're not going to bet against China. I mean, knowing on how far they're moving with technology, I agree. I agree with Bill Gates' statement as well. Is you are delaying the inevitable. China is going to figure that out, and that's kind of where on my recent video, I shared a picture from 2015 where it was the United States and China, Internet Summit in Seattle, Washington. And it was incredible, because you had Xi Jinping, obviously flew in from Beijing. He's there in Seattle. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, Tim Cook's Apple, all of these tech CEOs. from both China and the U.S. all meeting in Seattle. And they're talking about tech and China and America. How do we improve infrastructure? I mean, that was an amazing time just 5 years ago. And, it's incredible to see, how far we've regressed. And I've got a super chat coming in here from Analog in Shenzhen. This is a great supporter of my channel. Always enjoy chatting. Why are all these non-American countries like Sweden worried about possible Huawei spying when it is actually proven that Snowden says the NSA has direct access to tech companies? I think what you're seeing is what we're gonna see a lot of other countries outside. For instance, like you look at the UK. I think they're being pressured into, you have to choose your side. Who are you going to be with? You're going to be with
Absolutely,
US or China?
100%,
right?
100%.
And I mean, it's well known. We know that the United States spies. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, what's the CIA? I mean, it's a central intelligence agency. It's an entire network of spies. Michael Pompeo, we lied, we cheated, we stole. We know that the US does this. It's ludicrous to not think that they don't. And I think what you're seeing, like the UK, I mean, I believe that the UK, obviously banned Huawei because of significant pressure from Trump in the US.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think that's where you're going to see, and I think even the US, I mean, they would come out and say, well, who would you rather have? Like, if we're going to have spying, who would you rather spy, China or the US? Like, let's be honest, we spy, but at least we're not Chinese, or at least we're not communists. That's going to be the US's pitch. But I think that's where you're going to see, a lot of pressure, which is unhealthy, because you obviously, Sweden, obviously IKEA is very big in China. There's a lot of, great relationship between China and Sweden. I mean, if I was Swedish and I was Sweden, I would want to find a way. How do I work with both of these great countries, right? Like, I don't want to limit myself to one.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a couple of super stickers, and then I've got something really interesting about European countries. But
Okay.
Leo Chung, thank you for that super sticker. And M. Willie 1984, appreciate that. So I think the country that's going to be the most interesting here with the whole Huawei situation is Germany, because Germany have got to make a decision now. They're already under pressure from America for the Russian gas pipeline, aren't they? Nord Stream, I think it's called. But the dilemma Germany have is their biggest market, or one of their biggest markets, if not the biggest market for their automobile industry, is China. They sell a huge amount of cars to China. Now, I can see that if Germany turn around and say, we're going to ban Huawei from our networks, I think there'll be repercussions for the auto industry. And the auto industry in Germany employ a huge amount of Germans,
big time.
There's a massive amount of employment in that auto. So I think that will be a very, very interesting one. And just going back to the security thing, I was listening to a podcast the other day where this guy was suggesting it's actually the reverse of what. So the Americans are accusing Huawei of spying, but it's actually because it's actually the Americans who are installing a lot of the Trojans in equipment to pretty much monitor their population, monitor other people abroad. And this podcaster was basically suggesting that if they had Huawei equipment, they wouldn't be able to do that without Huawei knowing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of like they don't want the Chinese companies and authorities knowing who they are spying on and who they're watching. And I thought that was quite an interesting take on it, because actually, there's no proof that Huawei have ever installed backdoors in their equipment, but there's huge amounts of proof that the CIA have.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is an interesting take on it, I thought.
No, I think so, and it's just it's an interesting one. I mean, again, like, I think it's just it makes sense for the world. I mean, you look at like what Huawei is doing in Africa. Their network. I mean, they provide so much tech and just just an improvement in life. To all of these smaller countries around the world. I mean, they're big presence in Africa. Throughout the Middle East. I mean, it is amazing how different this Chinese. I mean, I was listening to an interview. With Akon, the famous rapper, originally from Senegal, very big in the U.S. But he's come out and he said, there has never been no country in the world has done more good for the continent of Africa than China. It's not even close, to like what China is investing and doing here. And it's just funny how the West is going to spin that. I mean, I remember seeing earlier this year, there was videos coming from Africa with a Chinese lady that was teaching these Africans, children, Chinese. And they said, the same thing. It's like, look at the colonization that's going on. They're forcing these children to learn Mandarin. And it's like, it's just so funny is, here we are in the West. Right? Like you have Donald Trump's granddaughter speaks perfect Mandarin. You go to these elite private schools here in North America. Parents pay top dollar to get their kids learning Mandarin.
Chinese,
and then you talk about, like China's going into Africa. People, imagine Africans, learning. Obviously, they're going to learn English as well, and then you learn Chinese. What a great asset to have. How is that a bad thing? And it's like and I think that's the other thing that's interesting is, it's like they're brainwashing them. Like the thing about China that's interesting is China doesn't go around the world saying that you need to be communist, right? China doesn't.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think even with the religious thing is as well, right? Like, my time in China, if I say I'm a Christian, I'm Jewish or anything, most Chinese people are almost kind of like a little curious about it. It's like, oh, you're traditionally Jewish. Like what, you have some unique holidays. What does that mean? Like they're very curious about this stuff, but people aren't going to be judging you. And it's not like, well, you know what? You're in China now. You should become a Buddhist. No one ever would say that, right? No, China's not going to Africa saying you guys need to have a communist party like we do. And I think that's the big difference because in China, they have a very unique form of government. I don't think that government would work anywhere besides China. I don't think you could take socialism with Chinese characteristics. I don't think you could take that to a country like Vietnam, which is another Asian communist country. I think it's different culture, different people. It is very unique. And that's where I always have a problem with, the US saying, democracy is the one thing, like everybody in the world needs democracy. And again, I think we're losing that battle in America it's hard to sell that right now. If we're looking at America, no one's looking at America thinking that's the type of government I want.
Nobody wants that. Absolutely. Okay, I just got another super chat here off Trevor Norman. UK bow to the wrong people. USA should make its own mind up on the truth, not the USA lies. Yeah, I think the reason why the UK went and was swayed by the US over the Huawei decision is the simple fact that right now the UK does about 3 times more trade with the US than it does China. And I think that's why they were pressured into that decision. Personally, 100%. I think it's the wrong decision because I think in the years to come, America will become less of a trading partner than China will. When the UK exit the EU. So I think the wrong decision was made there. And strangely, Huawei have been in the UK telecoms infrastructure for almost 20 years, and there's never been a security issue. All of a sudden, they see them as a security issue. And that was definitely because they were lent on heavily by the US. I think they were given an ultimatum. You drop Huawei or you don't get a trade deal. And they needed that trade deal. So that's the decision they made, and personally, I think that was a wrong decision.
And that's what we talked about, right? Countries are going to kind of be forced to choose. Who's the partner that you want to work with? Where ideally, in this global economy, we want to work with everybody. Working with with both superpowers would be great for countries, like Sweden,
absolutely,
like the UK, right? It just makes sense. But again, that point I made earlier, this is interesting to see how China and the US are going completely different directions. China building relationships and building roads, throughout the world. America is trying to essentially just be themselves, right? We don't want to have trade partners or anything. So Lee, we're coming up to, we've got almost, 1,450, people in here live, coming up on almost 90 minutes. Why don't we just end with some questions?
Yeah,
I think
that sounds like a good idea because we'll have to wrap it up in the not too distant future. Yeah, let's go with some questions.
Yeah, but great stream today, bud. I've enjoyed chatting with you, and always love chatting about China. It's great that we can finally connect here on a live stream. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good.
We'll have to do it again. So, guys, send in your questions if you have some additional questions, and we'll be happy to answer those.
Absolutely. So have a look what we've got here. Got Ollie sending stuff to me on WeChat to make sure I don't miss stuff. So let's see what we've
Okay, well, I got a nice comment here from Walter Chin. You expats are trying to get China and the U.S., the two greatest nations on the earth, together to cooperate to make a peaceful and prosperous world. Great job, guys. Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, what I certainly hope for. I definitely want. I just remember going to China the first time in 2007, and it was just amazing, how the United States and China were really working together. I mean, you talk about the auto industry, right? I mean, there's so many German expats in China today working as engineers, auto factories in China. I mean, a tremendous amount, right? So, I mean, Germany has a fantastic relationship with China. They've done so much business for them. I mean, it is a big thing.
Yeah, and even before the auto industry, Germany supplied a huge amount of machinery into factories here, and then as the Chinese got richer and wanted to buy nice cars, they chose German cars. So I think it'd be very interesting to see what Germany do about the Huawei situation.
Yeah, I've got a question in from from our good friend Jerry up in Qingdao. He wants to talk about, I think, Hunter Biden and these, these stuff like that. I mean, I think it's, I don't know a lot about that whole situation. I try to stay away from this. It's just as an American, this is a really difficult time to be American. These last couple weeks, I mean, as an American, an election year, right? You're just bombarded with so much talk about, the media and about the election. It is overwhelming. And I think all of Americans were at I have the same feelings today, right now, as I did 4 years ago when it was Trump versus Hillary. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's just get this thing done. Like, we're going to have one of these two is going to be the president. Let's select them and let's move forward. And that is where I'm at with this. I mean, I don't think Biden's record is perfectly clean. I don't think Trump's is either. I think both of them have issues. I mean, we know that. I think the last presidential debate was better, right? It was a little bit more civil, between the two candidates.
It was.
Yeah, but I mean,
one thing that stuck out for me though is that it appeared that Trump didn't really have any plans or policies. That's how I felt. It was like you sort of alluded to earlier. Well, the healthcare thing's coming, again, and it was like when he was pushed on his taxes. I mean, that's a massive issue. I think of a trust issue. All the presidents before him have always released their tax returns. Yeah. And he even sort of deflected again. Oh yeah, my accounts are getting ready. We will release it soon. We'll release it when it's ready. But man, he could release them. He's up. To me, that suggests he's got something to hide.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that is the thing with American politics that's so difficult. Like I said, you can change parties, you can't change the policy. Yeah. I mean, changing that healthcare in America, that's a very difficult task. So, I mean, it isn't easy for him to change it in the first place. But I agree, like, he doesn't have a plan. As we know, Trump, I mean, he loves to, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fantastic. Best healthcare in the world. Fantastic. I mean,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful. The beautiful people.
Beautiful. I love it. I love when anybody, he's like, I met with Lee Barrett today, great, fantastic YouTuber, and a personal friend of mine, love him. Great guy. It's like, you could have shaken his hand, but all of a sudden it's like, great guy. Love the guy. Love his work. Great buddy, guy. Yeah. It's so good. A couple Max who, hi Cyrus, do you think America is going to be more kind to China if Biden wins the election? I mentioned this a little earlier. I think it has become too mainstream to be anti-China. I think it would be a little bit better. I do see the relationship improving in the long term. I think short term you're going to still see, you're not going to see this instant fix if Biden wins. That's for sure. What do you guys think the chance of U.S. and China getting into a regional conflict over Taiwan? I think that is really. That's a big question there. I mean, that is kind of the one thing that I would fear, the most. I think that's the easiest way, I'd say, for the U.S. and China to get into a conflict would certainly be over Taiwan. Obviously, the United States is going to be, they are going to act very quickly. They're always going to have Taiwan's back. They want Taiwan to be an independent country. That's in the eyes of America.
And China are not going to let that happen.
And China's not going to let that happen. For sure.
My worry over that is that there'll be so much military buildup in the South China Sea. Somebody just makes a mistake or gets a little bit trigger happy, and it could set off bigger things. And I'm kind of concerned about that, because America at the moment are being very, very provocative in that area. You know, they keep sailing these warships through these areas and stuff like that. This under the guise of freedom of navigation, but it's just provoking China, I feel.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I was talking to an Indonesian man, and he was saying that people, he was saying, like, look at what the China's doing in the South China Sea, and he said, look, like South China Sea, that where China's at right now is very close to my home country. I'm more concerned with what the United States is doing in the South China Sea. That's their region there, and so. I agree with you. Like, I mean, we have so much warships and all of these things going in. I mean, that's going to be, maybe trigger happy. Maybe someone just wants a conflict. Got a little super chat in from Haza China Vlogs. Haza, we've recently connected on Twitter, I believe it is. But anyways, I think he's based in Guangzhou, and he does a television show there. And anyways, I know he's been in the stream since the very beginning, so I want to thank you for the support and thank you for being here today.
Cool. I've got a question here from Tom.
Lee, are you? Oh. Hold on. Can you guys hear me? My audio has gone out. Oh. Okay. I'm going to say, I think Lee's had an issue there. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'm going to answer one question from Rich Keenan. Do you guys have problems convincing your family and friends in your home countries that their media are telling a shower of lies about China, COVID, HK, Xinjiang, Huawei, etc.? This is a good question, Rich. I don't have, I guess with my immediate family, they definitely know, that I've lived in China for a long time and that I share these insights. I think that they certainly want to learn more about this. I think what's funny is it is a tough thing because, for your average North American, really kind of Westerner, right? Your only insights into China is what your local, what your local government and what your local media is telling you. So that's really a tough one because, in order for you to, understand more about China, you're going to want to have to seek independent advice, independent sources of information. That's why I always say that, YouTube and LinkedIn, these are my two sources that I really enjoy for getting more insights into China. I connect with a lot of expats and people that are leading industries in China on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a very pure network because it's not all these rumors and nonsense on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's about business. So the people that I connect with in China, they're sharing, this is what we're doing in China. I follow a ton of digital marketers in China. How are we talking? How is Alibaba moving forward on, this shopping festival? How is digital currency going? All of these insights you can find on LinkedIn. YouTube is a very great resource. Obviously, guys like, Lee, Ollie, Jerry, Guilo 60, all these guys are providing you, hey, this is what our life is like in China. And, this kind of leads into, this was another super chat that just came in from, hold on, I just saw it. Where did it go?
I think it's also important to do research when especially mainstream media now. I think they, you get one full story in one media and 50 other pieces of media just repeat that, and nobody actually checks out whether it's factual. So I, do some research when you see news, just look a little deeper into it.
Well, it's amazing to highlight that, Lee. I saw the BBC. They shared a picture from, there was like I think it was in Taiwan. There was like a marching of the military in Taiwan, and they had grabbed that video source and they had put that on, this is what's happening in Pyongyang, North Korea today. Right. I mean, like they got the whole country. It's like, this is Taiwan, right? And but yet again, like this is the danger where you have, again, going back to that Wall Street Journal article, you have a guy that's never been to China. He's writing about an article saying, you know what? I bet you Beijing is jealous of America. and our and it's like, are you out of your mind? Like no one is
Yeah, of course.
like
It's just ridiculous.
it's not like saying, okay, China and America have both controlled COVID. Now, who's going to be the first to, to really move forward? Okay, China has. America, we're not even close. So I think it's just so silly to even have these. This is why you have to really look into this. And this is, I got a question from Haza China Vlogs. Why do you think there's a massive divide in the China YouTube space? Why so much toxicity? What are your thoughts about this? Lee, do you want to start that off?
Yeah, I think it's down to foreigners who've possibly had a bad experience in China. I picked this up with some. They've come to China, and okay, China has rules, and you have to accept those rules. And if you can't accept those rules, then that obviously becomes a problem. And I think when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So I live here in China, and I live by China's rules. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean I like all of those rules. That, like the point that I have to use a VPN. I don't like the fact of that, but that's the rule. To do what I want to do, I have to abide by those rules. And I think what happens with some of these YouTubers, they come here and they have a bad experience, and they leave China, and it's almost like they're angry about it, and they start attacking China over that. I think that's why, there's a number of YouTubers who attack China. There's not many here that attack China. They're all ones that have left and attack China, and I think that's why, because they've had a bad experience here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is interesting. I mean, I know I've had some foreigners that, for instance, China has. It's hard to get the work visa, right now in China without a 4-year degree, for example. And I had friends that pretend they were teaching English. They they didn't have a 4-year degree. They couldn't get their visas renewed. I mean, there's been more policies put into to rules on foreigners in China, and I've had a lot of people not like these policies, and so they've reacted negatively towards that. I think as well, one of the other things that I'll say is that becoming anti-China is becoming popular in the West, and so I think that that some people if you're going to write an article slamming. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had one of my very first China YouTube videos I made, I had an American guy, basically, comment on LinkedIn, and he basically said, you don't know anything about China. He's like, for more insights into China, check out my real blog where I share everything. So I went to his blog, and it was quite amazing. I mean, he's got hundreds of articles. All of them are about China, and they're very negative in nature. It's basically everything is like China's trying to destroy everything. Negative, negative, negative. And so, I read a couple articles, and I said, wow, they're really well written, and I said, this guy definitely, must have some insights into China. So I just wanted to have a chat. I said, tell me more about your experience in China. Where'd you live? What was your experience? What were you doing in China? You're never going to believe his response. Well, I don't need to go to China to realize that it's bad. I'm like, hold on. I'm like, hold on. Time out. You run a blog, and this was on his LinkedIn description. Like he's the CEO of this digital blog. Like this is his job, and I said, you run a blog about China, and you've never been to China? And he said, well, why do I need to know? He's like, my grandfather fought in World War II against people like China. Why do I need to go to a country to experience it? And I said, that's really strange, because that's like me saying, you know what, I'm going to make a vlog about Bangladesh. Never been there. But I'm just going to, let's start making a blog about this, or I'm going to start talking about Russia. I've never been to these countries. I just can't understand how people can be so naive, but he's obviously peddling on the fact that, obviously being anti-China has become popular right now.
And there's money in it, there's money in being anti-China, because there's a lot of organizations. I mean, it's really interesting that there's Daniel Dumbrill uncovered some really interesting stuff on there's a American organization called ASPI, and they claim to put out very independent reports about China. Yeah, they're very negative on China. Then you look, who funds them? They're all the big weapons manufacturers in America.
Exactly. Yeah.
How can you be independent when your funders are all the big weapons companies and military companies. How can you possibly be independent, you know? But they go around, oh, we're an independent organization doing independent reports about China. Of course, it's all negative.
Yeah.
You know, it's just ridiculous.
So, guys, I think I've got to actually dash now, but I want to answer one last super sticker. This is from Jun, sends a little emoji coming in just for support. I appreciate that, guys. Let's wrap it up. So I'm going to I'll do my closing comment, then go to Lee, and then we'll wrap it up. Everybody, I really appreciate you. We peaked, I think, around 1,400 people in here in the chat. I'm really just incredibly grateful for the continued support to both of our channels. I mean, we have a passion, along with many other China vloggers, to help, help give this insight into China. I think that's what we're trying to do. And like I said, many people fear China because they don't understand it. We're hoping these videos can give this insight in, and that we're trying to really hope that people can, we want to learn to work with China. That's the thing moving forward. We've got two options in the world. We can either go to war with China, or we can learn to work with China. Going to war is a lose-lose, not just for US and China, but everybody in the world. So we need to build bridges, and this is what we're hoping that you do on these channels. So again, everybody, thank you for your support on this channel and our channels, and thank you for joining us today live. We'll do more of this in the future. This went really well. We're very happy. Yeah, Lee, over to you, mate.
That's cool. Yeah, just to pretty much repeat what Cyrus said, thank you all so much for tuning in to both our channels. If you subscribe to our channel, you're not subscribed to Cyrus's channel, go check it out. Hit his subscribe button. And if you're a subscriber on Cyrus's channel, come and have a look at ours. Absolutely. And look at our content. We do a lot of content showing you all around China, what's going on here, and it's what we see. We're not forced to do it. We're not told to do it. We report what we see and what we do. And but yeah, a massive thank you. Appreciate you all for joining us.
Absolutely. Wonderful, guys. Well, thank you all, and until next time, we'll see you then. We're signing off for now, guys. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and thank you all for joining us. All right,
as always, take care.
Bye-bye.